Hey everybody, so quick unfortunate side note, at the time of this video releasing, the Keeping Up with Star Rail with Cipher video just released, as well as her light cone information. So, here's the light cone information on screen now, and yeah, this doesn't change the video at all, but it just means I didn't get as high quality footage as I wanted, which is unfortunate. Either way, I hope you really enjoy the video, I put a lot of work into it, and yeah. Alright, let's get into it. Because she's a cute cat girl, do I really need to say more? Hello everyone, my name's Christian, and today, I'll be trying yet another new video type. As I've been pulling in more banners recently, I don't often talk about the characters I like and want to get personally. Especially since my choices are, usually not the most optimal. With that in mind, I thought it would be fun to make a video talking about the character I'll personally be getting, why I like them, and why I think they're a good character. You guys can tell me down below if you enjoy this, but now that we have that established, we can finally talk about the character I'll be getting for this version. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing down below. Over 90% of my audience isn't, and it would be greatly appreciated. On top of this, we now have YouTube memberships with tons of fun perks like early and bonus videos for those interested. Alright, back to the video. Out of all the characters in version 3.3, Cipher is the most overlooked by a pretty good margin, I feel. Hyacinth being a phenomenal support for two of the most popular recent characters in Mighty and Castris meant that she got a lot of the attention for the update and was picked up by many players. Then, there were the rerun characters of the Herda and Aglaya. While Aglaya is far from the most popular among players, at least according to the general public, I definitely saw it differently on the video I posted, she was one of two primary DPS options available this update, and is extremely strong with the right supporting cast. As for the Herda, she's one of the most popular characters in the game, and is amazing in all content currently, but especially anything involving multiple targets. With all these premium characters on the board, many people aren't as thrilled with a silly cat who is more of a support than anything else. Many still like her for her character, but she simply isn't as good gameplay-wise to many players. While everyone is entitled to their own opinion, of course, I do personally think this is a bit excessive. When comparing her to the fellow sub-DPS Tribby, Cipher definitely loses out, but that's more of a comment about Tribby than Cipher, I feel, because Tribby is just disgusting as a character, like oh my god. Cipher also doesn't offer amazing buffs like other support-oriented characters, but that doesn't make Cipher bad, it just makes her different. Cipher will be yet another installment in universal characters that can work with a myriad of teams. All of this while still having an identity rooted in her ability to deal damage in such a unique way. Cipher is unlike any character we've seen before, and I hope as we go through her kit, you'll come to understand why I'm a fan of her and how she works. So let's finally talk about what you're all here for, the moveset of this feline phenom. This was most recently revealed in the Legend of the Galactic Baseballer event, so don't worry, there is no mention of any leaks today. The numbers aren't exactly accurate to her full trace level though, so I'll be using some rough estimates, or I might just be cutting a few numbers out. Also, if this video comes out when the full details are already available, then, whoops! Alright, let's get into it. So, let's start off with Cipher's basic attack. It's a basic attack. Wow! Alright, so moving on to anything more interesting, next up is Cipher's skill. Hey, jackpot for the taking. This is a blast attack that has a 120% base chance to decrease enemy damage dealt, and it will also increase Cipher's attack by 30% for 2 turns whenever she uses it. An important note about this attack, it can move Cipher's mark to another enemy while retaining your current damage record. You probably won't want to skill on Cipher too often, but do keep in mind, this combined with the attack boost does in fact make this skill worth using every so often. Next up is Cipher's talent, which is easily the most important part of her actual offensive moveset, and what I feel is the most interesting for most players. Cipher's mark that I mentioned earlier is called the Patron State, and it will automatically apply to the target with the highest HP on the field. When the patron is attacked, 2 things will happen. First, Cipher will unleash a follow-up attack on the patron that can be triggered once per turn. This is similar to how Kafka's follow-up works for anyone who's played her before. The second and more important thing, Cipher will record 12% of the non-true damage that her allies deal to the patron. This does not count any overflow damage, and her record will be cleared after using her ultimate. While this amount doesn't sound that high, it is capable of stacking up quickly with high damaging teams, or teams like Fei Xiao's, where damage is very constant. Cipher does also have a trace luckily that allows damage on enemies who aren't the patron to still be recorded. So she can constantly still stack up the damage she needs for when she uses her ultimate, and boy oh boy is that a fun one. Cipher's ultimate is called Yours Truly, Kitty Phantom Thief. Oh my god, it's the Phantom Thieves! Anyway, Cipher will deal a set amount of quantum damage to one enemy to start with. That's cool and all, but this is what I'm really here for. After that instance of damage, that enemy will take 25% of Cipher's recorded value as true damage. Quantum damage will then be dealt again to adjacent targets and the one designated enemy, and to top it all off, true damage equal to 75% of Cipher's recorded value will be distributed amongst all targets. Now, with this being Cipher's bread and butter, many people aren't really impressed with it, and I can't say I blame them. It would be nice if this value was dealt flat to all enemies instead of being distributed, but I do also understand how brutal that could be game design-wise. This ult still holds high value though, since not only is it an ult that's not too hard to get and will deal a lot of damage, but against single target fights or enemies with weak minions like Hule, the little guys will die quickly, bringing more damage to the main target. True damage is also a very strong multiplier, so even getting some of that damage on your primary target will always be beneficial. This isn't a character I can recommend using in multi-target fights if you really want to make use of her personal damage, but she can definitely still get the job done due to her jack-of-all-trades nature. And in these lower target fights specifically, she will excel without a single shadow of a doubt. That's Cipher's main moveset covered, so now we can move on to her major traces. These major traces are absolutely massive for Cipher, and really help make the character more than just a follow-up support. First up is the simplest trace that I had mentioned earlier, 300 Rogues. This trace records 8% of all non-true damage that allies deal on enemies that aren't the patron. While 4% is still a downgrade, the damage not just being linked to the patron is huge, meaning AoE teams can still really profit off of Cipher's playstyle as well, while helping out every other team she would be a part of. Next up is Cipher's most important trace for being built, Empyrean Strides. This trace makes it so that if Cipher has 140 or 170 speed, it'll increase her crit rate by 25 or 50%, and her recorded value by 50 or 100%. These types of traces have started appearing more in the game, most recently with Mighty having one too, and I have to admit, I actually quite like them. They help reward you for building your primary stat with much easier build requirements, which can be very nice for players who struggle to make solid characters. Now don't get it twisted, while getting 170 speed can still be a complete pain, it could definitely be worse since with speed boots, Cipher starts at around 135 speed, and I feel pretty safe in assuming that her light cone will boost speed just like Hyacinth's did. The final trace for Cipher is a really fun one, and it's called Sleight of Sky. This trace does two things. One, it'll increase the crit damage of Cipher's follow-up attack by 100%. The other feature of this trace, and definitely the most important one, if Cipher is on the battlefield, enemies take 40% increased damage. What? Okay, so we're just making Pela's whole ultimate a single feature now. Okay, cool, yep, alright, noted. Yeah, so if nothing else about Cipher convinced you, this is the most likely thing by far. Just by existing, no attack, no ultimate, no nothing, just by existing, Cipher will increase your damage dealt by 40%. That is incredible. Now I know some of you in the comments are going, well, actually, Pela with an S5 resolution Shine's light cone increases damage dealt by more, so this is still pointless. I'm never doing that again. Well, you're technically right, but also, realistically, wrong. Let me explain. Shout out to the Reddit user who did this, but there's a graph that shows how much of a damage increase you get with defense reduction. Unlike vulnerability, which is what Cipher and Zhao Cho have, defense reduction isn't a one-to-one conversion. This is something that I personally had to learn about for this video, so I'll try to keep things brief and simple. The defense shred of Pela's ultimate is 40%. This means your damage is increased by 27%. The light cone resolution shines as pearls of sweat at its max superimposition level, further decreases defense by 16. At 56% total, you get 42% increased damage. This is only slightly higher than Cipher, but guess what? Cipher is a nihility too, meaning she can equip this same light cone. Combined with her flat 40%, Cipher can increase your team's damage by right around 50%. Not to mention, this is only with a 4-star light cone. Presumably, her personal light cone will help her even more, as most nihility cones give further damage increases. So with Cipher, you can not only get more increased damage, but unlike Pela and Zhao Cho, she can actually do some decent damage all on her own at E0. While Zhao Cho is still better suited to someone like Acheron specifically, that doesn't make Cipher any less impressive as another character to use for that team, or with others. Her personal damage will still be good, while just existing offers the same competitive debuffs as other premium nihility characters. In my book, that sounds like a worthy character. The last thing to touch on for Cipher before getting more into teams and build stuff is her Eidolons. While Eidolons are always an unnecessary luxury for most players, talking about them and their value is always worth it for a few people who have really saved, or people who may want to know how useful investing really is. Starting off, E1 for Cipher might straight up be her best value Eidolon. This Eidolon will increase your recorded damage value to 150% of what it was, as well as giving Cipher an 80% attack boost when her follow-up goes off. This is absolutely massive for Cipher's personal damage and can really add up in a fight since this will stack with her skill's increase as well. However, for any of you really trying to make primary DPS Cipher work, which, by the way, would never recommend, E2 is going to be what you're looking for. When Cipher hits an enemy target, there is a 120% base chance of causing them to receive 30% more damage, lasting for 2 turns. So remember everything I said about Cipher's damage increase on the field being almost 50 with the right cone? Okay, so how about 80? An 80% damage increase just by having Cipher exist. That is incredible. E3 and E5 are skill upgrades, so we'll go straight to E4. After Patron is attacked by an allied target, Cipher deals quantum additional damage equal to 50% of Cipher's attack. This isn't bad, but truth be told, I wouldn't really recommend this one in most cases. However, if you're already going to be going for E6, this will still be a nice damage increase overall. Lastly, we get to E6. Increases damage dealt by follow-up attacks caused by Cipher's talent by 350%. Records an additional 16% of non-overflow damage dealt by this attack. After resetting the record upon using her ultimate, returns 20% of the reset record. Yep, more DPS Cipher while also retaining your damage record slightly. Definitely a good value Eidolon overall, but for anyone who's a light spender, E2 is as far as I would advise going personally. It, combined with E1, are a huge boost to Cipher and any team that she's on, really raising the ceiling of what they can do. While I don't know light cone specifics right now, it's usually safe to say with nihility characters that E1 is slightly more useful than the light cone, so keep that in mind when pulling. Well, going over all of that took me 4 pages in this Google Doc, so I'll see if I'm able to speed things up at all. Next up, I want to go over your preferred relic sets and planars for Cipher. The nicest part about this section is, the game already kinda does the work for me. When opening Star Rail, you can find the build guide either in your characters or the Interastral Piece Guide. Opening this tells you what materials you still need for a character, and what the game thinks their ideal pieces will be. There's a relic set that is far and away her best, and it's Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters. The damage boost on this relic set plays perfectly into what Cipher wants, increasing her overall damage and crit stats. The next best set really isn't close either, with it being the Genius set. The extra defense ignore is nice, and against quantum weak enemies, this set is probably her best, but that's a pretty specific scenario once her initial update ends. I would mainly stick to Pioneer, but if you want to have 2 sets ready to go, by all means, go ahead. Moving on to planars, this becomes a bit trickier. Technically, you can build Cipher as more of a support or more of a sub DPS. Personally, I feel the sub DPS style is the better way to build her, so that's what I want to focus on. This means ignoring the in-game suggestion of Lushaka and going for the Glamoth planar instead. With Cipher's ideal build in mind, you'll already be over 160 speed to trigger the best effect of this planar, allowing the wearer to deal an additional 18% damage. This will be your best option in most cases, with the exception of a Fei Xiao follow-up team. In this specific instance, Duran is a set to consider. You'll be able to reach max stacks fairly quickly, and that little boost can be just as good for Cipher. If you want to keep your Cipher as more of a generalist, however, then absolutely just do Glamoth. You will be fine. Now, as for the ideal stats you want on your gear, Cipher wants a crit damage body, speed boots, a quantum damage orb, but attack still works perfectly fine, and an attack rope. The substats are exactly what you would expect, with speed being the most important until 170. And then, you want to just hard focus your offensive stats as much as possible. As a nihility character, I know effect hit rate seems like it would be important, but in the case of Cipher, her debuff isn't really that important, and it already has a higher base chance than most others in the game. With the 10 effect hit rate you get from traces, the chance for your debuff to land is already pretty good, sitting at around 80%. Stacking some effect hit rate definitely wouldn't be bad, but overall, your offense and speed are definitely going to be your main priority. While many players will tell you not having the best stats is a crime and you shouldn't even use the character, I'm going to tell you a general baseline for what your Cipher should look like. You'll want 170 speed, with that being the only stat you cannot compromise or lowball in any way. After that, shoot for about 90% crit rate in battle. You'll always want higher, but this is a good benchmark. In terms of crit damage and attack, get as much as you can, but about 140% crit damage and 2300 attack is usually a pretty good baseline. If you can hit these, your character will definitely work, but there will still be a little bit of room to keep improving. And with that, we have finally made it to the last section of the day, teams. With Cipher having such a universal debuff and skill set, she can be played in any number of scenarios. 3 team types stand above the rest, however. First up, and where she will probably get the most use I imagine, Fei Xiao / follow-up teams. While Cipher definitely lacks in the attack department compared to March 7th who swings constantly, her follow-up is devastating, and will still go off fairly often, which allows Fei Xiao to still gain her stacks. This damage boost is still extremely helpful for Fei Xiao, as she has no sort of res pen or defense ignore built into her kit naturally, and needs either her light cone or her Eidolons to accomplish this. Like I said, this is probably where Cipher will get the most playtime, but keep in mind, she is in no way limited to just this team. She can also work well with our old pal Acheron, since she is in fact nihility and does what Acheron wants the most: increase damage. In a standard 2 nihility setup with Jiaoqiu and Pela, you'll definitely want Cipher over Pela, but that's obvious. In the case you're running Jiaoqiu in a support, however, this is where Cipher is gonna ultimately lose out. Cipher as an overall character is incredibly strong and comparable to Jiaoqiu, but in terms of purely supporting Acheron, he's got her beat because of his increased ultimate damage. Factoring in his signature light cone, Acheron can do 75% increased damage on her ultimate. No matter what Cipher's signature light cone does, it will not be better than that most likely. In the event you don't have Jiaoqiu like me, however, absolutely use Cipher at all costs. She will now be your best possible option. Last but not least for Cipher, we have her spot on Casterus teams. This is mainly in the event you don't have Tribby, or you need Tribby elsewhere. RMC is genuinely more important for Casterus than anything else, since there are 2 whole HP pools to drain from with him on the field. True damage is also an incredible buff that's hard to top in most cases. Going back to the Tribby point though, that also means that anywhere else you would use Tribby or Jiaoqiu, you can now use Cipher. This means Mighty teams, Dan Heng IL teams, Boot Hill teams, and DOT teams. Hell, she can also work with the Herda pretty well since she has a high damage increase and can attack often enough to contribute to the Herda's ult charge. While Cipher isn't an overwhelmingly broken character like some of the previous ones to be released, she does fill certain niches, and most importantly, she really helps alleviate pressure on certain characters. With Tribby and RMC being in such high demand since their release, Cipher serves as a bit of a perfect crutch to make sure you have enough supports to go around for all of your teams, rather than having to handicap one team to boost another in endgame content. Definitely a bit of a specific scenario, but ultimately one that does come up a lot sadly. Now, we can finally wrap it up. As always, pull for the character you most want, and if you don't want Cipher, then don't grab her. My only goal today was to share why I thought the character was cool, and to give you the reasons why picking her up might be worth it. With Cipher, she will be of the most value to players who have strong follow-up characters. If you lack that, then she will lose a bit of value unless you still need a support for one of your various teams. That's the truth of the matter, and I hope all of you fellow Cipher wanners end up as Cipher havers. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. This video was much longer to make than expected, mostly because I kept messing up my script, oh my god. Okay, I have all of these outros scripted as well. Guys, I cannot tell you how many times I messed up on the Cipher script today. It was rough. Anyway, so showing some support down below would be greatly appreciated. I've got more videos coming out soon, so I'll hope to see you guys then. Bye-bye.